Testing, testing, testing. JB here. April 18th, 2022. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Had a great extended holiday weekend. Just going to talk really quick here. It's 1 o'clock. 3 hours to the close. Q1 earnings season picks up a little bit this week. Last week we had the banks. This week we have Netflix, Tesla, Bank of America was this morning, Intuitive Surgical, and quite a few other names, and then it really starts to heat up in the next week or two. So that should be interesting. Of course, IBM as well, which I got some calls on earlier. But first, just want to talk about a couple stocks, then I'll talk about the market in general, and I'll try and make this really quick. The first, obviously, BPT. They had their ex-divvy date was last week. The $1.08 divvy came off the top, so now the stock is, well, it's down here at 16.40, but if you put it in the perspective of the dividend, it's really 17.48. Still have the June 20s. Hopefully, we'll have a chance to close those out for 100% to cover costs and ride the rest. As long as oil stays over $100 or $105, you have to think this is going to go mid 20s, maybe even higher. Possibly a parabolic move at some point, especially if it breaks over 20. So continue to hold those. Also today, finally added, well, not finally, but I added some Biogen calls, upgraded this morning by Wells Fargo. They took their price target from 230, I think, to 260. What was it? I think it was 235 to 265. It's one of those bigger cap biotech names that really hasn't done well despite some of these other names doing well. Regeneron, Vertex, Insight obviously was the one I had calls on heading into the end of April expiration. But I thought the upgrade would really give it a boost, or at least give it a spark over 220. So I got some 220 strikes. I was looking at 220, 250s, 225s, but I thought the better risk reward was on the 220s. If there's some kind of pullback, at least the premium will hold up a little bit better. I was watching the market start to pull back a little bit, so I was a little concerned about the stock falling with the market at 212. I think it's 212.85 or so would be the area I might look to just salvage the calls or close them out and revisit. But I think, especially if the market can find a better footing over 440 on the SPY, I think this sets up for a move into the mid 220s on Biogen. So that's why I got those calls. IBM reports earnings after the close tomorrow. Here's a name I've been waiting forever to have a true turnaround story. Get the debt under control, start to have year-over-year revenue growth. This company has bought back billions of dollars of shares over the years, so the outstanding share count is substantially lower than where it was 10 years ago. So you would think that the stock should be into the 200 and 300 range, but it has not, with competitive concerns and the fact that the company has struggled to really turn around the business. But I think if you look at their last earnings, it started to show some improvement. Their acquisition of, I'm trying to think of, it's not DOS. Who is that? Linux, right? Who's Red Hat, right? Their Red Hat acquisition, looks like it's finally started to bear fruit over the last couple of quarters. I think even if it's an inline kind of earnings report, I think the stock hits higher as people start to look ahead into the future. So got those calls. I'm hoping I get an opportunity to close them out or at least close some of them out before the close tomorrow to cover costs. If not, I'll probably hold on to them. Speculative kind of position. So that's Biogen, IBM. And then Burlington, right? BURL. I was looking over the weekend at some of the charts, and you take a look at some of the retailers. Burlington was one. You had Ulta Beauty, and some of these other retailers are actually kind of, if you look at their charts, you would think the market's doing pretty well, as opposed to falling, the last couple sessions, and 2% down week for the S&P last week. So at some point, I was looking at the open, and the spreads are pretty tough on the calls. The 230s, I think they were $1 or so, and I was looking to get those. And sure enough, the instant I looked to pull the trigger, the stock falls back after I got my IBM strike. So definitely a name I'll be watching to play for upside. And same with Ulta. People are concerned about the consumer, right? Consumer sentiment is near multi-year lows. But these are some of these names. I think especially Burlington's kind of more discount retailer, and you look at Ulta, and people are, everybody's using Instagram and doing videos and all that fun stuff, Zoom videos. So you have to have a good presentation. And of course, Ulta plays kind of right into that space too. So I think I'm not calling them recession proof, but if we do have some kind of slowdown in the economy, I think those are names that'll still do well. So that's the thought process on those names. There was another name I was looking at this morning on the watch list. Let's see if I can put it on here, but I forget the exact. Is it DKMT? I'll find it later. So some other things. So I put on the watch list this morning, and if you read any kind of financial website over the weekend, any headlines, in those headlines are going to be, recession is on the horizon. We have inverted yield curve that has preceded every recession. Inflation, consumer sentiment is at lows. People are starting to, use credit card usage is going up. The amount of deposits into banks are going down. There's all this entire narrative just paints a picture of the market just going to zero. Right? I hate to say it like that. I'm not trying to. The worst thing I think to do is to fearmonger, because most times when we're at the peak of this kind of narrative, the market heads higher. So then you just start to think, if there is recession on the horizon, which it kind of makes sense if it costs more to buy certain products, you got to cut back somewhere else. But maybe some of this is already baked in. So that's kind of where I'm at in the stage of everything that's gone on over the last couple months. I mean, the S&P is only down 5% from for the year, and it's not in correction territory. So that's kind of my thought process there. And then secondary is you take a look at some of these names that are reporting earnings. Q1. If we have GDP, the first forward look on GDP, I think is April 28th. I put it on the watch list as well. I think it's a backward-looking number, right? By the time we get the GDP results for Q1, we're already well into Q2. So we're just going to kind of get the confirmation that we're headed towards a recession, or the confirmation that, hey, maybe things aren't as bad as everybody's is panning it out to be. But tomorrow with Netflix, people read the headlines. So when they start reading the headlines, the average consumer, maybe they're, concerned about costs. Are they going to start cutting some of these expenses that maybe they don't deem essential? So these streaming services, maybe we're not going to watch Netflix for the next couple months until we have more clarity on the economy. Maybe we're not going to watch, we're not going to pay for our Amazon Prime membership, since we're not going to buy stuff from Amazon for the next 6 to 12 months based on possibility of higher costs, inflation, and uncertainty with the economy. So I'm not going to sit here and buy puts on Netflix. Obviously, last quarter was it wasn't even bad numbers for Netflix, but just finally took it on the chin. Is this going to be another quarter of lower than expected sub ads and lower guidance? Are they, who knows? And then of course the funny thing is they miss, maybe they lower guidance, but people, the markets will say, oh wow, okay, now with the bottoms in on Netflix, and the stock will reverse losses. So tough one to play, but certainly one to watch tomorrow. I think that'll be a key kind of not a key indicator, but if their guidance is lower and they start to say that they're concerned about consumers, cutting back on the expenses, then maybe that might be a sign that the market's gonna start to reflect that, continue to reflect that, as opposed to it already being priced in. So I think that's it. Some other names here, and hopefully Biogen can get a bid here. Oh, Twitter, right? So I locked up, somehow was able to get the rest of my calls out for better than I thought I was going to be able to get, as Musk announced his buyout on the Twitter. Then the poison pill news from Twitter, which, if you look at history, now Netflix did that. Carl Icahn had like 9% stake. They were concerned that he was going to try and get a larger stake. And this is back when Netflix was at $80. And I think $80, and that's split adjusted. So you're talking, I don't know, $1,500. I forget exactly what the number would be on Netflix. So they adopted the poison pill, and then it kind of frustrated Carl Icahn. So what does he do? He starts to sell. So he got out way early. But the difference, I think, is that Netflix, they had a great vision, a great director team. They were already doing well. They've transitioned from just doing DVDs to online, so to streaming. So all those things were going well. So I don't think you really want to have an activist get in there and do anything, right? And the stock had fallen from $200 down to 80 or so bucks because they were giving up on their DVD platform. So people were upset about that, and rants for other days. So also, and then you have Yahoo and Microsoft. So I posted that over the weekend as well. You had, I think his name was Yang. He spurned an offer from Microsoft, and I think Yahoo was at $34, and he was going to buy it out for $58. Some nice premium. They thought that they were, they should be valued higher. Sure enough, what does Yahoo do? It sells off, and eventually gets bought out for Verizon at substantially lower valuation. I'm not saying the same thing happens here with Twitter. You read and watch some of the folks talk about Twitter, say, oh, it's a $30 stock. It's they should just take the offer. Right now, their platform is their users, right? The moat around the business is the users. So they have a tremendous user base, and you take a look at the most valuable person on the planet is Elon Musk, and he has 80 million followers. So he has an interest in the company. So that's kind of the valuation there. The fact that they turned it down, it is kind of, Pinto posted over the weekend, the directors don't even tweet. I mean, how can they make a valid valuation on the company if they don't even use the platform? We'll see what happens. New York Post, I believe, had an article this morning in regards to the possibility that Elon Musk is going to reach out to other folks. So to avert the poison pill and his ability to acquire more than 14.9% without triggering the poison pill is to get some partners in. And if you can get some partners, they can all acquire different stakes, and I think that's a workaround. Also, the possibility of a raised buyout price. Is it going to be? Is it $60? Is that the sweet spot? So definitely looking at that one at some point to trade for a possible move to the upside over 55 or so. Some other crazy stuff. Market Watch had an opinion piece on Elon Musk, and you read it, and it's like they're talking about Tesla, when it was $50, and here it is, $1 trillion company, and they're talking anyway, and then talking about Musk. Like, if you haven't followed the story, Elon Musk, he's not he's not traditional CEO. He definitely flies all over the place, but he's relentless. And if he acquires Twitter, it's gonna, in my opinion, be successful, because he won't stop till it is. He hasn't stopped till Tesla's successful. It hasn't stopped till SpaceX has been successful. The Boring Company. So you can go on and on. So they made the case that his hands are in too many things, and like his hands are already in the most successful private rocket company of all time. Years ago, you never thought that a private company would be able to launch astronauts to the space station, and they did it. So, I mean, to think that he's not going to be successful trying to turn Twitter around while juggling all these other balls, I think, hopefully we'll find out. I think that's it for my rant. The chip names, AMD, NVIDIA's up to, MU, is LRCX? I didn't even look at LRCX today. Yeah, so that kind of, I was watching those before when Danger was posting his entry on NVIDIA. I said maybe some of these chip names are going to start to bounce a little bit after the big sell-off. So names I'll be watching this week as well. And then we get a lot of earnings the following week. So I think that's it, folks. I'll try and get back on the audio later. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.